Well, good morning, Dr. Rose. How are you?
Good morning, Professor Gora. I am very, very excited in this Indigenous Persons Month to present a new CD, Classroom Disruption Take or Take Away, hopefully, on this month and its regular scheduling and what we might do. It's also a classroom disruption filled with heart, humanities, art, and technology integration. So it's two shifts to the curricula, to the date on our calendar today.
Well, I love the way you framed that. As you well know, because I've known you for a good long time, Rose, I'm an advocate for critically needed disruption to education, and I'm a hardcore fan of your work in curriculum development and teacher coaching. To engage kids in reading and loving whole books, not just pieces, but the whole books. And in particular, I'm a fan of your creative use of digital resources to establish in the minds of young readers vital personal connections with the books that they read. To me, that's essential. And I'm also a fan of how you guide kids to use books to understand their world and understand it well. So I'm looking forward to what you're going to share. And so we've selected some graphics to look at. So let me share those. And you can begin as I'm sharing them.
Okay. Well, it's so exciting, Professor Gora, that you have touched on so many of the different aspects of what we're going to do today. As we can see from the meticulous notes that Professor Gora labored over preparing so that this would be professional and to his level. I don't ever reach that level. Um, this is the level of his meticulous research for this classroom disruption program. As you can see, we have two books that we're going to focus on. And in fact, one of them has an image and an accessory, which I suspect most of us have in our minds. So we're going to look at the month. Now, this is Indigenous Persons Month. I did not designate it. As teachers know in a classroom, we have a calendar, just like our tablets. My tablet today made a noise and let me know loudly and clearly that I have several Zooms for today and different things on my calendar. Well, as teachers over the years, even before digital, we had a calendar. This past 21st century, our calendars have these regularly scheduled and scripted months. And what happens during these months is we have to do a quick lesson on the theme. Usually it might be social studies, it might be science, it might be literacy, it might be inclusion. We've got to do a quick lesson because that's the month. Now, I consider this to be, as a classroom disruptor my whole life, even before Professor Gora started this podcast, I consider that to be a band-aid approach. The themes are worthy, definitely. The topics are worthy. The topics are ones we should indeed. They're from the real world, they're personal, they're about living in today's 21st century world and about living in general as a human being, human in this world, and as a feeling, caring citizen. They're about things that we should be focused on, but not in a scripted, one a 1 month approach. It's like if you have a gaping wound and you put a little band-aid on with one of the stickers that children buy, a band-aid with some famous character sticker, and all the blood is flowing, but you've got this one nice band-aided approach. So we're going to look at Indigenous persons through that lens. Okay, now let us keep scrolling along with these wonderful notes, Professor Gura. I'm going to ask everyone here, even though you are
Tell
only
me what to,
listening. Fine. Yes,
tell me
I'll
what,
tell you when to scroll up. Yeah. I am going to ask everyone here to listen as I would a classroom, to think in your head when you hear the word Indigenous person. Well, the kids in the two books, the target level kids for the two books that I am sharing today on Indigenous persons, don't even think of it as Indigenous. In fact, that becomes a vocabulary word. But when you, an adult who's listening to this, because I don't think little children would, when you, an adult, are thinking about Indigenous persons, once called Native Americans, once called American Indian nations. I got a fellowship to study their language and literature. When you think of it, what do you see in your mind's eye? Now, I'm going to be bluntly honest because this is honesty. I see in my mind's eye, though I don't tell the children that, I want them to tell me what they see. I think Indigenous, Native American, American Indian used to be called, was politically correct at one point, and savage was historically the way it was referred to in the 18th and 19th centuries, not politically correct today. When I think of it, I see feathers, sorry to tell you, I see Indian chief mascots. I see a headdress. I see leather. Um, I see dancing and the powwows. That's what I think of. And I'm going to be honest. Of course, did grow up in the 20th century with Westerns and action figures. I didn't play with them, but gender, no, not gender is correct today, but I didn't play with those action figures, but my peers, male, did. That's what I see. Professor Gura, what do you see in your head, being blunt and transparent?
well, I see many things, but yes, stereotypes dominate and color all of it. So yeah,
Okay.
I
All
see
right.
bows and arrows and teepees and feathered headdresses and things like that.
And Professor Gura is sad to say, both Professor Gura and I think I can be transparent, particularly because stereotype women aren't supposed to like discussing their age, but I I feel let's just take it on. Both Professor Gura and I grew up in that 20th century where we were exposed to all that media and so-called stereotypes. Now, may I reveal to you that when I asked three classes in doing these books, I went to three centers and I did these activities which teachers this is what stuff you can do right away in your classroom. And no, you don't need to buy the books. You can just download the read alouds, and that'll be later on in the notes, and play it on demand in your classroom. But when I ask the children to begin, so anytime you're doing an Indigenous approach, and this is not the script, this is a classroom disruption and a heart, humanities, art, and technology way to do it. Goes with any book, but these are two early childhood ones. Actually, this is K through 2. This is called Finding My Dance. You saw the pictures before. Whenever you do this approach, first begin They call it accessing prior knowledge. But what it really means is say, what do you see in your head when you see this word? So I have to teach the children, I had to teach both groups. One group was K through 2 mixed, and the other two groups were 2 through the word indigenous. Then one of them had sort of heard it, the grade 4 kids, but really they called it natives. They called it natives, and one of them actually called it Indians, American Indians. So I taught them that word, and then I asked them what they saw. And guess what? Sad to say, these 21st century kids, they saw Pocahontas, a Pocahontas costume. They saw feathers, had dresses. In fact, they liked that. And many of them had studied about teepees. This is rather sad. It's a staple of the social studies unit in grades 3 and 4, housing for Indians. So they had studied about teepees and log houses and that type of thing. And one of them knew the word reservation, but they had a very vague idea of what that meant. So that they had the same. How sad. I am wearing a necklace which is from Harry Potter. It's a time turner necklace. It's not authentic. I'm pretty sure it isn't, since I bought it at the souvenir stand of that play. But the characters in the play, there's a time turning machine that they're trying to find because it's dangerous. Unfortunately, here we are in the 21st century, and our stereotypes are time turned backwards. And that's for this generation, which I think is sad. So, how can we classroom disrupt? Now you can go to the images from Finding My Dance, Professor Gora. How can we classroom disrupt? And those are the images. The Fry book is the second. How can we classroom disrupt this wonderful, scripted, well intentioned, thank you, halt there, well intentioned strategy and the strategy is intention to build awareness, empathy, inclusion, e pluribus unum, e out of pluribus, the many, unum, one United States. This strategy is intended to build all of this. And so, ironically, in my opinion, go back to the first image. Ironically, in
This
my
is a,
opinion, my humble, that's it, yeah.
yeah,
My humble
we'll have to deal with this, Rose. It looks like, uh, I don't know, maybe it dropped the image you wanted of the jingle dress, was it?
matter. It doesn't matter. Just go
Yeah,
back to the cover. Perfect.
there we go.
Perfect. Perfect. I'm not having, I, I'm not, I'm not, luckily, I'm not notes
Finding my
attached.
dance.
Okay. Finding my dance. So the point is, how can we shift this? How can we indeed realize the intentions of these Band-Aid month theme approaches and begin to actually build the awareness, the empathy, the understanding of real Indigenous people right now? So, my approach to understand, don't move it. Okay. My approach to understand real Indigenous persons right now, living today. I am sitting in Inwood, Manhattan, and actually, my area does have a tribe who's active and does things. But to understand real Indigenous persons today, 21st century, we're not going to meet, and this is lovely, Wilma Mankiller. She's from our history. As you know, she was the chief of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma and did fantastic rights, Indian rights, civil action. And Barbie decided to produce a historic doll of her. She died in 2010, lived from 1945 to 2010. Here's her doll. And it's dressed in native dress, of course, because Bobby said, we must make sure that we conform to these stereotypes. And she did wear native dress sometimes. But on the back of her doll box, here's Wilma in a regular business suit, which she wore when she went up to advocate for her people. How are we going to find the Wilmas of today? How are we going to find the Indigenous persons of today? We're going to look at these picture books, and we're going to look at other books written by real Indigenous people. This is Rhea Thundercloud. Rhea is real. This book is a picture book memoir. Thank you. Rhea is real. Now we'll go back to the images. Rhea, before we go to the images, this is Rhea now. Rhea is a gorgeous, attractive, performing dancer. Yes, she dances the powwows, but yes, she also does jazz, tap, ballet. Let's go through her images. Rhea is from the Ho-Chunk Nation in Wisconsin. Notice how great they show it here. And the Sandia Pueblo Nation in New Mexico. We see two parts of geography, America that she's from. But she doesn't walk around with, now let's go back to the images from her book. She doesn't, well, I can even show them. She doesn't walk around with this. This is her orange jingle dress. This dress was given to her when she was a child, age 4, to dance in a powwow, yes, a ceremony, just like you or I, Professor Gora, would have gone to a religious wedding or a bar mitzvah or a christening, or you might go to a 15th birthday dance for a Latinx, just as she was told to wear this. Now, she does realize, and this is called an orange jingle jangle dress, and it's got silver crowns that make a sound. She did realize that in wearing this, yes, all of those ancestors, she's carrying them and their values and their joy and their spirit as she dances hard, as her brother told her. And by hard, we don't mean, well, we might mean that she pounds, but what we really mean is that she dances with passion. Why don't you go to your images, Professor Gora,
Okay.
those notes? We mean, okay, okay. Now keep scrolling up. We meet, here's her brother, and he says, dance hard. And what he means is dance with passion. And what's he wearing? Oh, yeah, he's wearing that headdress. And yeah, they're dressed as a stereotype, because that is a part of it. Stereotype Indigenous. But let's keep going. She realizes, Rhea starts at a young age in her childhood. Thank you. Stop over there. Rhea starts dancing. And she does go to powwows. But Rhea realizes, gee, you know what? I like the powwows. I like dancing. I like affirming what I was born to do. But do you know what else? I love, here's another dress that she wears. I don't move those images. Another dress that she wears, which is the butterfly dress. And that's also a symbol. And oh, yeah, it's got those wings. So it might, and feathers and stuff, a fancy shawl. So again, it's stereotype. But she realizes, Rhea, hey, you know what? I also want to dance. I want to learn other styles of dance, others that are not indigenous, because I'm not only indigenous Rhea Thundercloud from those two tribes, I'm also Rhea Thundercloud as part of the E Pluribus Unum, as part of the international dance community. So I'm going to learn modern, tap, contemporary, ballet, jazz. I'm gonna be dancing away because I'm also that. I am many things. I am not only the stereotype. And so Rhea does do that. However, now here is an image that could be and is, and I was going to find you six other books like this, but I realized that the Zoom platform won't allow me to do what I would do in a classroom. Um, but you have images like this in so many picture books, graphic narratives, isolated character, protagonist at the lockers. Go back to the locker image. The isolated protagonist at the lockers. That protagonist is not accepted by others because she looks like any of the kids in high school, right? She's not wearing those feathers. She doesn't wear the feathers in the powwow dance every time, but she's alone. She's too tall. She looks indigenous. And as we know, when you look different, whether it's indigenous, Latinx, transgender, Jewish in some circles, African American, Indian, Indian from India, Chinese. When you look different, you are isolated. So she is different. She's proud of being different, but she is alone. Also, as a dancer, she doesn't have the social skills. She can express herself, as do many artists, through the dance. All right, now you can move the images. So she expresses through the dance. Now you can move to the other images. Here we are. She is herself. She dances through her pain. Thank you. She dances through her pain, and she is her indigenous spirit, persevere, preserve, be, but she's also her talent self, her individual, which I for sure am, although I'm not an indigenous person, and Dr. Professor Gura is, although he's not indigenous. This is the artist in us, the writer, the speaker, the person. So yes, she's indigenous, okay? And yes, she's going to dance with her ancestors. The end of this is I am going to dance. I am going to dance forever, and I am going to carry my ancestors with me. Today, we can find Rhea dancing. And yes, she is carrying her ancestors, but you know what? She also dances professionally, minus that. And we actually have what's wonderful. Now, this is about, remember, this is about many things. This is one, a curriculum, a curriculum disruption, because what we're saying is we're not taking a classroom disruption of set curricular character. We're not taking that stereotype and going, okay, let's get a story out about Pocahontas. Yay, everybody knows who she is. Ooh, let's do Geronimo. Well, he's in the history. Let's do Chief Joseph. I mean, these are all wonderful people, don't get me wrong. They're historic. Let's do Wilma. We can show her doll also dressed right too. No, we're saying let's look at a real person, real life, yes, indigenous and proud, but also other things, as all of us are. I'm a Jewish white woman and I do identify, but you know what? I'm a lot of other things. I'm an advocate, I'm a civil libertarian, I'm a shopper till I drop, I'm a fashionista. I drive certain people crazy, obsessive, but I'm other things, other. And if I walk down the street I don't generally wear a label that says Jewish, white, Caucasian lady and wear different clothes which would identify me as being a Jew. Honestly, I don't. And walking down the street in my neighborhood, I don't see people wearing labels. So also what's wonderful is that digitally we can find Wilma. There is, and that's included in the meticulous notes prepared with much anguish because of me by Professor Gora. We can find Wilma dance, we can find Rita Thundercloud dancing professionally so the kids can see what she really looks like, which is really splendid. And really the most important part of all of this, and this is true for almost every indigenous author you can find. And I'm going to make that bold statement because it's true, is that these indigenous authors now, and most authors, are delighted if asked to read aloud their book, particularly because Wilma's book came out in 2020. When did that come out? Yeah, 2022. But many of these books came out in 20 during the pandemic, and authors were being asked to read aloud their books, and most authors want to do that. And when an author reads aloud their book, you see what they actually look like and sound like. And so there's a wonderful recording of Ria reading aloud her book. And guess what? She isn't dressed in her costume and feathers. You'll be able to see that. There's links in these meticulous notes. She's walking like any of us. She looks very attractive, but she certainly doesn't look like the stereotype or even like the dancer at the powwow because she doesn't dress that way in her real indigenous life. And that's the message. Now let us go. So this is K through 2, but as you see, it has many deep understandings. And those of you who are listening to this broadcast and maybe getting credit for it because you need continuing credits, or because, oh, Indigenous Month, I'll show the supervisor I listened to, and I can write a summary of this, you should know that there are books in middle school written by real Indigenous persons, such as Ancestors Approved, a wonderful anthology put together by Cynthia Leidich Smith. And those books are on middle school level. And then, of course, they're a young adult, also put together by Indigenous authors. And those books also are everyday, real Indigenous people, real life. And the reason that's important is because, yes, children need to learn history. I'm also a licensed and proud social studies educator, and I have taught the horrific section of our social studies curriculum where Indians were treated as savages and sent off to boarding school. And the idea was to kill the native Indian spirit, kill the savage and save the person. And that is a chapter of American history. In some ways, it's ongoing. That's a terrible chapter. But if we're going to build real living with real Indigenous people now, we got to get to the fry bread of it. We got to get to the dance of it. Now, this book, Fry Bread, is the second choice, and this book goes K through 5. I call this book an elastic. One size fits many grades. Now, those of us who are fashion conscious know that elastic is not the best kind of outfit to buy because you really want to buy one that fits to your body. But elastic, and for these grades, it's really good. The reason it's elastic is it's written by a guy. Ria was and is a performer, and she wrote it to inspire other performers and to be close to her indigenous values, but also to show what it means to be Indigenous today. This guy, Kevin Noble Maylard, he wrote the book. He's a law professor. He has no background in elementary education. He doesn't perform. His target audience isn't teachers, it's law students. And he writes for cinema, he's a cinema critic who writes about films for adults. So this was not his milieu at all. Why did he write it? He wrote it of necessity. He has a kid. He himself is from the Seminole, Oklahoma tribe, but he doesn't look that, as we'll see in the meticulous notes put together by Professor Gora with angst. As you'll see, he's an attractive looking guy uh, who on the street you wouldn't know what, I mean, you'd say he's an attractive looking man who's well spoken, but you certainly wouldn't peg him to be any particular of these flavors of the month Band-Aid cultures. He wrote it because he wanted his child baby. He had a baby when he wrote it 2019. So he wanted his toddler currently and his son to see themselves in books. And when he looked around, there were young adult books, I think. I think he would have noticed them, but not books. He didn't see enough books, picture books. So he said, okay, I'm going to write this book. And he said, well, what should I write about? And although he isn't a teacher, he realized immediately, and he had good sense to realize it. Realized immediately, hey, I should be teaching reading like a book for a little kid. I think he realized it because as a parent, he was probably reading these kinds of books to his little kid. And he said, well, let me make a rhythmic book with lots of sights and sounds and food. Professor Gura, what is your favorite comfort food or bread when you think of bread and scents in the kitchen? What is your favorite go-to childhood memory, Professor Gorham?
Hmm. Well, probably Jewish challah bread.
Oh, she did? Actually? That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, yes.
that was a
Okay.
treat.
And okay, and I actually grew up with that as well. But the thing now, let's go to the images. When bread is being made, I also do bake. I know how to make honey. Honey has a distinctive scent too. When you're baking with honey, challah bread in Jewish culture is eggs. It's eggs, and you can throw in honey. When bread is being baked in almost any culture, and although we're a culture where we buy processed food, some people like to go by actual bakeries. And when I taught younger grades, I used to take the kids by the bakery so we would scent and sniff. So in his culture, fry bread was baked, and fry bread has a distinctive. And he realized fry bread is food, and he made little headings. Fry bread is shape. Somehow he combined his knowledge, I think, of being a parent with a kid, and he created for us a book. Fry bread is history. Let's stop at this one. He created for us a book that is rhythmic. And initially it seems like a K through two. It's what scent is it? And oh, the smells and the scent, and then shaping the dough. Any child, and some of us adult children who never grew up can tell you that shaping dough and sniffing and smelling and putting in the oven and watching it rise and then eating and the taste, all of this is so fun, even for those of us not children and on lifelong diets, but doing the baking. But he realized also that in his food, there is history. Now, his food has a sad history. His is the bread of oppression, because the reason they were using these four ingredients, which was some sugar and flour, these simple ingredients, was because that was what was given to the Indians when they were relocated from their, well, to the indigenous persons called Indians then, when they were relocated from their native lands to other places. But, but they learned to make do, and they made something beautiful, and as we see, tasteful and doughy and beautifully and delicious from the bread of oppression. And because of this, sad to say, his book, which received the Robert J. Silbert Award, the best award, which is the top award for informational picture book, received that award in 2020. His book has also been banned because it tells of the oppression food that Indians had to make. To which I, as a Jew, would say, we have a food in our culture, matzah, which is unleavened bread, which is baked very quickly and doesn't rise, doesn't have flour in it to bake. And it's eaten every Passover. And it's in a book called Haggadah, which is about Passover, which says, here is the bread in Hebrew. This is the bread of affliction. Let us eat it. And meanwhile, Manischewitz and Streit's matzah has made millions on it and sells it during the year. And kids go to matzah factories, Jewish children whose bread of affliction it was, and adults go to bake it, well, not bake it, but make it the way it's supposed to. So I don't see anything wrong with that. However, I would say that it is historical, and you could do this in grades 3 up, which is why this is elastic, that it's been an object of book banning. And ironically, his story, designed to affirm and celebrate being a Seminole Indian eating fried bread and making children everywhere want to do it, his story has ironically been banned, and it's written by an indigenous person. So we have fry bread history. But he also did something else to personalize this book, and he has pages in the back of the book, which is why it's also for grades. So he celebrates the book, but he wanted to say something. I didn't ask you at the beginning, Dr. Gora, Professor Gora, how many nations you thought the Indians, indigenous persons were, if you thought that there was just one tribe or two. I did ask the children, and most of the children said to me they were able to name Cherokees. Good for you, Wilma, man killer. They were able to name Cherokees, and they named Iroquois because in New York State, they study in the curriculum in the elementary grades the Iroquois Indians, who now are under a confederacy. They still exist, but they're under confederacy. They named 2 tribes. So some of them in the older grades thought there were 2 tribes. Others thought maybe 4. Well, there's a huge number. Is there a wall here? I don't know if you can show that. There's a huge, let me show this. Maybe we can shift here. There's a huge number of tribes. There are actually over 400 and counting. And he put the tribes on the inset pages of his book. But he also included in the book, and this is imaginary, he included in the book the characters in the book visiting a wall. Now we know there's a 9/11 wall where we can see, and they continue to add the people who died in the 9/11 wall. We know that. Let's go back to the images. There's a 9/11 wall. Let's go back to the images. There's a 9/11 wall for those people, but he included in the book an imaginary wall with the tribes, and he had one of the adult characters. Here she is. Next image, next image. Next image. He had one of the adult, all right, he had one of the adult characters pointing to that wall. There she is. There she is holding a baby. And notice all of the characters in his book, they're not all indigenous. Some are other types, because what he wants to say is fry bread is not only a story so that you see indigenous persons eating fry bread. In fact, I am creating next lesson that I volunteer to do at an after school center. The children and I are going to make fry bread dough activity. And then we're going to make little fry bread constructs and write stories about what we're doing that was in the book. And we're going to photograph it and we're going to put it online, a project. So he sent photos of the people in his actual family to his illustrator, who is not indigenous. But he wanted those people to be the characters upon whom the book was modeled. Okay. And he sent photographs to his illustrator, who is a Peruvian, but she's not an indigenous. And she made the characters look like his photos. And so in the back, and that's why in the back material of his book, that's why it's for grades 3 and 4. He says, I put Easter eggs. Easter eggs means, even if you're not Christian, it means you hide a visual clue in the book. And it's a scavenger if you're a reading teacher. So this book you can use for phonics and phonemes and fluency in reading. Fry bread is a this and fry bread is a that. And then comprehend vocabulary about fry bread and indigenous and Indian, all those other words and impressions on history, but you can also use it if you're a teacher teaching reading, for vocabulary and for finding details. So he's got the little boy, his actual son in here. He's got his partner in here. He has himself in here when his hair was longer. And if you look at the back picture of him and you look at and he's got his recipe too, then you are doing detailed, close reading, and then you're going to do research. And as he says, fry bread is art. And so it's art and humanities and technology. Um, and he put it all together, and older grades can do it. Now, I just want to quickly go to activities. You might say, well, okay, so I see that I can find read alouds, and he has a read aloud of this book too. And guess what? He's not wearing feathers. He looks his own gorgeous self in the read aloud, and you wouldn't know he was an Oklahoma a Seminole Indian from Oklahoma, unless he actually told you, or you're watching the TV clip where he and the child is wearing glasses in the illustrations here, and the child wore those same glasses when they were on television together, which is in these notes. And the children are going to go, oh, here's the boy. Oh, there's the author. Oh, and they're also going to notice that they're not wearing feathers. And no, they're not carrying fry bread and eating it and making it as they go along the street every single day. In fact, I don't eat matzah at all, but Jews only eat matzah the 8 days usually during Passover, although it's now an industry and people buy it throughout the year. Lots of people, not Jews. Same with fry bread. It doesn't define you. It is a part of what you are. So you use these stories, dance, finding your dance. What the heck is your indigenous culture dance? Now, that doesn't mean that you went out and take lessons like Rhea Thundercloud. It means, what dance do you dance when you go to parties with your family, or are you taught as a child? Well, my culture has the horror. You dance around, you don't have to have special skills, and it's usually danced at my kind of events. Greek has a wonderful Greek folk dance that I love to dance in and out. Then, there's different dances that we can dance, and I've danced them. And of course, someone here is a expert trained dancer here. Um, those are all cultural dances. And in dancing them, you don't become the culture, but you certainly move. You classroom disrupt, you move, you make it come real, and then you take photos of it and you ask your family member about it and how to do it. And you can either take a photo, you can draw if you're a little kid and you don't have access to a CD. You can draw, you can make an exhibit, you can put it up, you can do a culture day, you can do the steps, you can sequence, etc. For fry bread food, what is your cultural food? Well, I've spent quite a bit of time here talking about, well, actually, the two, challah. I also know how to bake, and kids love braiding. The challah not only has dough, but you get to braid it in and out, which is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, not with your hair, but with dough, because then you can eat it, and you pour egg over it. And that's all those activities, by the way, can be done with your class if they're little kids, or they can do it and they can sequence it and write about it. And cooking shows, by the way, cooking shows, TikTok videos, how to do it, right? There are TikTok videos which I watch. Disclaimer and truth, which I watched where I learned to do dance steps and do it with my kids. And someone I know actually is a trained dancer. But I can't afford that and don't have the time or the strength for it. But I watch TikTok videos. Kids can create one, right? That's a tech project. You can film it. They can teach other kids to do their different dances. And in doing so, we have gone from the band aid, while there's all this blood gushing around, but you got the pretty, this is Indigenous persons band aid, to getting to know the real Indigenous person right here in our streets right now. Now, I'm not saying, and again, I want to make this clear, I'm a history teacher, I am a social studies teacher. Of course, in Black History Month, we should learn about Dr. King. Of course we should. Of course we should. Of course we should learn in Latinx Month about some of the key Latinx thinkers and writers and those who pioneered for rights. But how about the people who aren't walking around with the labels? And who it is in costume day. I also dress up in costume day, by the way, as my culture proudly, but I don't do it every day. So to conclude, uh, CD, CD classroom disruption, heart, humanities, art, technology. Let's take something that's in place. Let's take a lesson to three. Let's let the kids see right now the real person right among us. And even if, and again, there are, guess what, 111,000 native indigenous persons who told the census worker in 2010 that they were indigenous from some tribe, not two, but lots of tribes. Now, they told that to the census worker. So that means to me that there are plenty of people who didn't affirm that they were indigenous. Remember, an indigenous person today registers and says, I am from the Seminole tribe. I am from two tribes like Rhea. I am from three tribes. They register. Some of them are that, and they don't register. So there are 111,000 living in New York City in 2010. Well, it's now 2025 coming to 2026. How many are there? And Let us celebrate them. Let us celebrate the life, but let us do it by real people right now. And as I said, if you're sitting here in your K2 and you're saying, well, these read alouds, these videos are going to do me no good because, gee, I'm teaching grade 6 through 12. No, you go, you put in your group and you go to, and we'll give you some of those, and you just put in your group and you will find anthologies, you will find books written by, and you get to the memoir or to the current person and you will find it, and then you will find video of this person talking themselves up or Instagram. And that to me, if you're going to do only 1 to 3 lessons, other things, etc. This is real people right now, not a band-aid, but a bandwidth approach. Thank you, Professor Gura, for giving us an opportunity to use your classroom disruption channel and to infuse and further spread your approach of heart, humanities, art, and technology. I am exceedingly grateful for your patience and your willingness to, unfortunately, we still have to click in step with a well-intentioned calendar month approach. Thank you so much.
One last thing, Rose. And by the way, wonderful books, great insight and suggestions and how to teach them with kids. These notes, most of we didn't look at most of what's in the notes, but they include a terrific overview by you that gives great detail into all of the things you alluded to when you were speaking. A couple of articles, full articles by you, and complete lesson plans, and lots of links to resources that are good to go for the classroom teacher. So with your permission, Rose, I will include and make available a link to these notes as well. Have a great day, and thank you for sharing all of this.
Thank you. And let's get real. Let's get real in our calendar month approaches.
Mm.